So this is the start of the series that I'm going to do on the Texas Penitentiary, and I'm going to give you a little bit of my background. I was born in Texas, but I lived all over. I lived in Hawaii, I lived in Las Vegas, I lived in New Mexico, and I was very poor when I was coming up, right? So whatever you think poor is, like, you're probably not doing it service. Like, I want you to think 10 times worse than that, because like I grew up in like homeless shelters, hitchhiking from like LA to Las Vegas. My mother was mentally ill and we were like a suitcase and she would just move us around. So I grew up poor than what you probably can imagine, and when I left, when I was pushing 17, I went out on my own. I fell in with a group of really good guys from Louisiana, but I was still like a little bit of a knucklehead, and they were better men than me, to be honest, right? I was leading more towards the street life, and they were more towards like working and getting their shit together, right? So, I started hanging out with a bad crowd, and one time we're sitting around drinking and smoking, and they go, they don't worry about it. Whenever you go to prison, you're going to be all right. And this is the new group, the people that I was running with, a guy named Halfdead and Marcus, who had both already been to the pen. They were like 23, 24. I'm like 18 at the time. And they like, don't worry, when you go to the pen, you're going to be all right. And that kind of stuck in the back of my mind, because that was the expectation at the time. I was expected to end up in the penitentiary. But, the only way that I didn't end up at the pen and how I got out of all that, I ended up going to Job Corps in New Mexico, right? I actually had to leave Las Vegas because I got into a bunch of dirt. People were like literally trying to kill me. Like, I don't even like getting on here and being like, oh, I was like a hard ass or some shit. I was a dumb young kid who ripped people off. If I told you I could get this, I'd get the money and dip, and you wouldn't see me, and people hated me and they wanted their money, rightfully so. But anyway, I ended up going to New Mexico to get out of there. When I was there, I found out about Job Corps. From there, I kind of started slowly but surely changing little things about my life until I got to where I am today. Anyway, so let me fast forward a whole bunch of years. I'm in my mid-20s, and I start working at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Initially, I start off in population, and they had a bad use of force in ADSEG, and they had to move all the guys that was involved in that use of force. They moved them to General Pop, and they moved me and a bunch of other guys to ADSEG, and they needed a big guy who could be one man on a 5-man team, and that was my job. I was one man on the 5-man team. But right before I got moved over there, I was running an SSI one day. We were running around picking up mail, just doing what we were supposed to be doing. And for those that don't know, an SSI is like a worker, right? And I forget what the acronym even stands for now, but every one of the things about the Texas Department of Criminal Justice is you're gonna fucking work. Everybody fucking works. And so like his job was just like, I would push a cart, he'd get the mail and put the mail into the cart. That was my job for the evening. And he knows I'm a new boss. You can tell because my boots are fucking, shining, and my beard is I have no facial hair because you have to shave it all off at that time. And anyway, we're talking, and he tells me, he says, man, if I would have known about this job, I probably wouldn't have ended up here. And that has always sunk in, man. And like, I was like, that's real talk, because it's all about resources, opportunity, and knowledge, and I understood where he's coming from, because ain't nobody in the world would have thought that I was going to end up working in the pen. Matter of fact, my buddies all said, when you go to the pen, you're going to be all right. Well, they was right, because I went, but I went as a boss, you know what I'm saying? And so that's sunk in. He said if he knew about this job, he wouldn't have been out there doing other things. It speaks about the lack of resources in the community, and that's a whole nother thing that I'm a social worker, so I'm into shit like that. I believe in it, right? So, but I'll talk about that at another time. Anyway, so I get moved over to ADSEG, and I think I'll wait to the next video and I'll describe more about like what it's like working in there and what the vibe is like. But anyway, that's my first video. I could have easily been on the other side of that. It wasn't nothing but the grace of God, me getting lucky, me leaving a situation and completely removing myself and going to a place where I knew nobody else. So there wasn't, I wasn't expected to have a certain role or be a certain kind of way. I could start over and be a new person. And let me tell you, I know not everybody can do that. Not everybody can leave where they're at and stuff like that. But that's another societal issue, which we'll talk about through the lens of a social worker at another point in time. But all right, so I'll holler at y'all. This is NTX Johnny, man. We'll get at you after a while.